Hello, Cooper Glover, 1972 here, otherwise known as Brian, as you can see in the title. Um, anyways, as usual, like every Saturday or whatever, it's technically it's Sunday already. It's 3:12 in the morning, um, and I decided to watch a film just very shortly before I came on to the computer here. I watched another movie. Um, so I watched four movies this week, and I didn't take the dates down and which date, which what day of the month it was, or what day of the week it was. Maybe it doesn't matter. I don't know. Um, so in the past few videos, I've been telling you about this. Well, I subscribe to four streaming platforms, and one of them is Shudder, which is a horror streaming website, and they have this series with a. I got to know who he was a little bit better by reading a bit. I think I read about him on maybe it was Wikipedia. Joe Bob Briggs. He has this program called The Last Drive-In on Shudder, and I think just watching the films by themselves, some of them which I didn't love, I liked them more or enjoyed it more. Maybe is a bit better way to put it because and so there's no commercials. It's streaming. It's not like television. But he would, with his series, during certain parts of the movie it would go to Joe Bob Briggs talking about the movie on a set, and then they would go back to the movie, and then you know maybe 10, 20, 30 minutes later they come back to him on his set for the show. They go back, and then he has these interesting observations, and he's got you know jokes he tells, and so I wanted to see them all the way through the end. So I had three more to watch. Um, so the first one that I watched this week was a film called Legend of Boggy Creek. It's a 1972 docudrama, and it was directed by a man named Charles B. Pierce. This film takes place in Arkansas. Um, the people that act in the movie, some of them are the real people that encountered this monster in the woods or swamp or whatever of Arkansas, um, in a small town in Arkansas that's close to Texas, I believe, um, and I think near where Joe Bob Briggs grew up or something like that. Um, of course, I don't think much about these things. I like ghosts, things like ghosts and werewolves and well, I don't know werewolves like ghosts. I don't really buy into ghosts or the Loch Ness monster or even Bigfoot. Really, this is sort of like a Bigfoot kind of thing in this one. That for just to digress for a second, I think aliens have the possibility of being real, but if you've heard of the Drake equation, where um, if we're advanced enough to get off of this planet and then get over to another side of space or the galaxy or universe or whatever, and by the time we get to a civilization as intelligent as we are, they might have been gone by now. Their weather might have got bad for them, or they might have been getting close to their own sun, which killed them off or something, or they might be coming to us. And by the time they get here, like we're dead either because of pollution, or we get like 1 inch closer to the sun every year, I think. So, but that will take like trillions of years or something to get there. And I'm no scientist, so I don't know the facts on that. But I do know that each year we're getting closer to the sun, just a tiny bit closer. Um, but I'm digressing. So I'm trying to talk about this movie. So Legend of Bogger Creek, the cinematography is pretty crappy. I mean, he borrowed. If I look at my notes here, well, I'm cheating, and um, but if I look at the Wikipedia article about it, it says he spent, let's see how much money. He borrowed over $100,000 from a local trucking company, used an old 35 millimeter movie camera, and hired locals, mainly high school students, to help make the 85-minute film. The film has generated approximately $20 million in box office revenue and is available on DVD. But I found it kind of boring after a while, and um, maybe it was interesting in 1972, but it's not really interesting now. Maybe for people that live in that area of America, maybe that really is fascinating to them, but doesn't really excite me or get me interested. So I'm going to give this um, 2.5 stars. I can't quite recommend this because it's a little bland. Yeah, it's just a little dull and bland for me. And the film quality is horrible, and it's like one of those films you see like. See, I was born in 1972, so I remember when I was a kid, um, when movies were shown to us as students, or, or other places, they would have a film projector. Like at a library, they would show films on a film projector, like 16 millimeter prints. And of course, they had Laserdisc, like in the late 70s, early 80s. And then, of course, they got the VHS in the mid 80s. And then, like for my middle school and high school years, VHS was the preferred format to show, like not just at your house, but at school, So, but I can think this is the kind of film they'd put on a 60 millimeter projector to entertain kids at a school or something. And it's one of those films. Like when I was a kid, they had like some of the television channels, and I didn't have cable back then, but don't have cable right now. In fact, some of the channels on the television weren't owned by major corporation. They were syndicated, and they would have these like horror marathons. Like through a whole week, they would show like a whole bunch of horror movies, or they might go off on a different theme. Maybe they do some science fiction ones. So I saw films that way. I think they had Planet of the Apes marathons. They've had some of those, on the TV. So this might be one of those types of movies that they put on like a marathon series for a week. But anyways, let's get to the next movie. Next film, Joe Bob Briggs thinks is, I guess he says it's one of his favorite 10 films of all time, and I can't understand. Well, I guess he likes horror movies, and he likes you know he does this list at before he starts every film. He tells how much blood there is, how many breasts you see, how many dead bodies. I don't. Is it dead bodies? How many breasts? how many, how much blood is spilled, um, all this technical, not technical, just these, all these these special word combinations, and he says something foo and something foo and something foo. I don't understand what those foo things are, but anyways, and he's met some of the people he's that other films he's profiling in this on his series. So he's met Clive Barker, and this came out in '87. It's based on his novella, The Hellbound Heart. And of course, this is where Doug Bradley, who plays Pinhead, makes his first appearance in the Hellraiser movies. Now, I've seen another Hellraiser movie. I own it. I bought it because it was cheap, and I went to this horror convention, and Doug Bradley was there, and I had him sign it. Um, but and I wasn't wild about that film that much, but this film I wasn't wild about either. Um, what's his name? Joe Bob Briggs was saying that he Clive Barker managed to keep the budget low by filming in, like, I don't think it was a set. I think it was a house, the whole inside of a house. And well, there are some outdoor scenes, I believe, but mostly it's indoors in this house. And maybe there's one interesting scene for me, like the slime or whatever coming out of the floorboards to become a man or a figure of some sort. That was pretty cool, but the rest of it was just kind of. I mean, the makeup was interesting for the characters like Pinhead and his few other minions with him. You know, like they look similar to him in a certain way, but there's little differences. Like the other guy has like this metal coming down his chin, and the other guy has no eyes, and maybe it's like a visor over his eyes or something. And and one of the actors in the film was the daughter character. This is her first movie, and I think she's really hamming it up, and you can tell she's not. She hasn't owned her acting technique or anything like that. It's very forced and cajoled, and there's this. Well, you also see the scene with this monster of some sort chasing her down a hall, and that doesn't make any sense. Some of it I don't think makes any sense, you know, this movie, and yeah, I just I didn't really like it. It didn't make any sense. I didn't understand what the puzzle box meant. Maybe if I read the novella, The Hellbound Heart, I might have a more appreciative bend towards what the film's about, you know. That I didn't quite get it. Maybe you're not supposed to quite get it. Maybe you're just supposed to be entertained by it. Um, Joe Bob Briggs said that um, Roger Ebert gave the film 1.5 stars, and I can't remember what his quote from Roger Ebert was, but it was not complimentary to the film. You know, all you have to do is Google Roger Ebert's review of Hellraiser. I haven't read it, but you can see what he says. And for me, I rate this film. I definitely don't recommend it because I think it's a big bore, and well, it's kind of a bore. The makeup's kind of interesting. It's more Let me put it this way: it's more interesting than the Legend of Boggy Creek. You know, did I say Legend of Boggy Creek? I gave 2.5 stars because I don't think I'd give it 2.5 stars if that's what I said. I think I'd give it more like uh, 2 stars. Hellraiser, I'd give 2.5. Would I give it 2.5? Maybe 2. I don't know. I'm trying to deliberate. Um, you know what? I'm going to give it 2. I'm going to give Hellraiser a 2. I think it's a pretty bad movie. And then the last film he showed on his program was a film called Pieces. It was filmed in Spain. It might have some of it might have been shot in Boston. I'm not sure, but it's depicted as Boston, and there's I think there's some clues that you can tell it's not Boston, um, and I can't remember what those clues are exactly. Um, I mean, one of the things Joe Bob Briggs shows in the movies is that how how they make what are those terms, continuity mistakes, you know, like touchstone phones. He was talking about one film where um, touchstone phones um, didn't exist at a certain time period, and then like 10 years later they did or something. Just flaws in the films he picks up, which I find uh, interesting and helpful. Um, but anyways, Pieces is a slasher movie. There's this serial killer, slasher, a killer, a stalker, whatever, hanging around this college and using mostly a chainsaw, but I think he uses, well, no, you don't think. He uses a knife sometimes too. And he's cutting people up or whatever, cutting into them with the knife. And the police are on the case and they're trying to find him, you know, and they're using, um, they insert somebody that is not a student, but as a person to find out who the killer is. Um, but there's flaws in this movie. Like why did they allow a student to hang around with the cops when they start to learn who's the killer? Like why would they allow the student alongside them when the big moment comes? Doesn't make much sense. Um, I wish I could remember more of this film, but it has frontal nudity of a guy, which is kind of, I think maybe because it's a European film, they're more lax with that. You don't see that in American movies, frontal nudity of men. You know, you see it with women, but you don't see it with men that often. I don't. I think that would be the case. That's just an interesting side note, if you will. This film came out in 1982 and was directed by Juan Picar, Juan Picar Simon. I think the Simon was added on, what Joe Bob Briggs said, to just maybe make it sound better or whatever. Let me look at my notes here. Oh, and another thing I forgot to mention um, about Hellraiser is that it has an actor in it. Uh, Andrew Robinson, I believe his name is. Well, it says that here. If I click on his link, I think he was in Dirty Harry, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he plays Scorpio in the Dirty Harry movie. Um, yeah, so going back to Pieces, this person's using body parts to make a jigsaw puzzle, and it has this. I'll just give one detail about it. Um, if you're thinking of seeing the movie of Pieces, and that's at the start of the movie. this young kid is putting together a jigsaw puzzle of a nude woman, and it must be his mother gets mad at him when she walks in on him, and he takes an axe and he hacks her up, you know. Um, so this film was much more entertaining than those two. I don't know if it was a great movie. I'm gonna give it 3 stars out of 5. And then last off, since I finished the series, I decided to watch one of my Criterions that I haven't watched yet, and I'm gonna do a pickup haul. It's soon, probably, of movies I picked up in the mail, and also where I work at the library. They have a bookseller where they sell used and new DVDs and Blu-rays. Anyways, I when the Criterion sale came this summer, I bought 4 Criterions, and one of them is this one, Matter of Life and Death, directed by Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger. It was this particular movie was recommended to me by a friend of mine on YouTube, and so I watched it, and I was pretty impressed. You know, I think I'm pretty impressed with most of Powell and Pressburger's works that I've seen. You know, I haven't seen what's that movie called? I can't think of the name of it. With a serial killer. What's the name of it? And I own it too, and I can't remember. It's in the closet. I should, you know what? Maybe I should pause, and when I know it, then I'll come back on. Hang on a sec. Okay, Peeping Tom. That's the film I was thinking of. Where I think Michael Powell ran into trouble, and he couldn't make any more films after that. There are some special features on this. I've only watched 2. Martin Scorsese and Martin Scorsese's editor, who was also Michael Powell's wife. I know. Scorsese was saying on the special features that was it Scorsese or was it Thelma Schoonmaker? I think it was Scorsese was saying even though he couldn't make a film, he was always planning on making a film. So he wasn't just sitting around on his laurels or sitting around doing nothing. He was trying to get films off the ground, but I guess he had a hard time doing it, you know, at a certain point in his life. But this depicts a story about an airman, a Royal Air Force pilot who's, you know, flying from France back to England and during World War II, and he talks to this American woman on the radio, you know, coming down, and first he thinks he's dead, but he finds out that he's not injured, and you see heaven in this movie, and it's pretty interesting. Now, I'm an atheist. I don't think I really believe. Well, I don't believe in heaven or hell or anything. I believe this is basically it. And other atheist people say, like, even if there is a heaven, if you live for that, you're not really living your existence out on Earth and trying to get the best existence out of your time on Earth. So, but anyways, if you put that aside, you know, the way they depict heaven is pretty interesting. They depict it in black and white, and they depict Earth is in color. So he's supposed to go up to heaven. He's supposed to die, but he falls in love with this woman that he talks to on the radio, on the airplane, and she's down below in England. She's an American woman, and they fall in love. And he's had a not concussion, something about his brain, maybe hitting the you know, the sea or the sand or ground or whatever, when he, when he gets out of the plane, and he almost, well, oh, I'm spoiling it. Um, so something happens to him, and so, um, somebody from heaven, I guess he's an angel, is trying to arrange to fix things because they've never had problems getting people um, situated in heaven rather than going back to earth. You know, the one of the women up there that says about they only had a problem like 400 or 1,000 years ago or something. And this film came out in 1946. But the views of heaven, the production design are incredibly well done. I highly recommend this movie, regardless if you live if you if you're an atheist or a theist. It doesn't matter. I mean, just park your logic at the door and just enjoy the story is what I'd say. I still got to watch other features on here, and there's a commentary. And usually I talk about these things on the DVDs or Blu-rays when I show my pickups. So maybe I'll save that. But I'll say a few more details before I end my video here. And that is the cinema. Oh, and it was directed, produced, and written by Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger. One of the actors in the movie, and his name escapes me for the moment. What's his name? I don't know if he's mentioned here, but he's been in other Michael Powell Pressburger movies. Like Robert Livesey. He's the guy that plays Colonel Blimp. So he plays David Niven's doctor, and he takes up another role in the film as well. So there's this. It's a matter of life and death. So you don't know what's going to happen to David Niven, you know. So, and the cinematography is done by Jack Cardiff, and it's Technicolor, you know, when they're shooting this movie, 1946. And just one other thing I'll just say about this movie. The camera operator is a man named Jeffrey Unsworth, and he would later go on to do 2001: A Space Odyssey for Stanley Kubrick, and Superman with Christopher Reeve, directed by Richard Donner. So that's like some of the, you know, heavyweight stars, you know, that you notice in this film, you know, that real legends of cinema. But anyways, let me give you my rating on this. I'm gonna give it 4.5 stars. 4.5 stars. And I thank Sasha for telling me that this film would be a good film to watch, and so thanks a lot. So, anyways, that does it for this week. I'll try and get the next video out, you know, either like Saturday night or early Sunday in the nighttime, you know, before late morning takes place, you know, like in the wee hours of the night. But anyways, you'll see it probably, most definitely. I don't know what else to say, but check out my GarageBand videos as usual. I did one recently called Doom and Gloom, and I don't know if I've said this before, but I played it with a fork, and that's how I got these interesting sounds out of the album. Oh, I think song. I mean, I think I did mention that before. I also did a GarageBand video called "The Tyrant Must Die," where I have pictures of various dictators, and then a fair amount of them showing their dead bodies or graves or something, you know, set to music, and then my voice saying the tyrant must die, and then the tyrant is dead, you know. Um, and I can't remember if I put anything else on since then. I don't think so, except for my usual videos regarding like movies. Yeah, I did one about movies that make you cry. I did another one on something else, which I can't remember. There was a few videos before that, I believe. Um, and just last thing I'll mention is my blog. So it's right here. I'll leave it up there for about um, I'll leave it up there for maybe 30 seconds, approximately. So, anyways, that wraps the video up. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. See you soon. Bye.